Hello and welcome. I'm Jodi Carlton, creator of Spectrum Relationships and your host for Neurodiverse Relationship Q A. I created this program for those of you who are in relationships that are neurodiverse. So maybe that's you that's on the spectrum, or maybe it's your partner, or maybe you're just not sure. But either way, join me every other week for a Q&A session. And be sure to subscribe or follow my channel for updates on all the programs and courses that I have, and to watch or listen to tips to help you in your relationship. So, what will we talk about today? Hello, everybody. I feel like it's been a while since we talked. So I hope you all had a great holiday if you're here in the U.S. We just had our Thanksgiving here in the U.S. and I believe those of you up in Canada had Thanksgiving a little while back. And I know you guys tune in from all around the world, and we all have different holidays, but Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays here in the U.S. We have some seriously good food. You know, one of the groups that I'm in Facebook, not my own, but somebody said that Thanksgiving food was horrible, and I was just like, what? Because we have the best food ever here in the South. In the southeastern United States. It's truly amazing, and it's my favorite food ever. So anyway, I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we're just breezing right on into December, into the holiday, just carrying on into the holiday season here. And you know, the holidays can just bring about excitement, celebration, joy, awesomeness, right? But some of you are probably dreading it a bit. Hi, Rian. Good to see you. It's been a while. You know, I hear from the holidays and birthdays. It's a common topic that comes up that really can create stress in neurodiverse relationships. And so some of you I know are looking forward to the holidays, and some of you are also really dreading the holidays, and some of you are really excited about it, you know, the new relationships maybe that you're in, and some of you are it's been a while and you're just dreading it. So guess what? I have something for you guys. I am going to be doing a webinar for you guys, and we're going to have 4 dates, and so this is a Get You Through the Holidays webinar. It's a toolkit where I'm going to share some strategies with you. And instead of me just sitting here and telling you about it, I actually have a video that's on the website now. And I'm just going to share the video with you because the enrollment registration is now open for it. We just opened it like just now before I went live. And so you can register for it right now. So I'm gonna share the video with you right now, and it's only like 3 minutes. You guys can just bear with me here. So let me do this. Hold on one second. Hi there, I'm Jodi Carlton, and if you're not familiar with me already, I'm a neurodiversity expert and relationship coach. So that's autism, Asperger's, whatever label you use, it's all pretty much the same. So here where I live in Georgia in the United States, we are in full swing holiday celebration mode. And for some of you, that brings about a lot of excitement. And for some of you, that brings about a lot of dread. So what I've done, you guys, is put together a webinar for you where I'm going to help you get through this holiday season. Now, the thing is, I know that the holidays, it brings about social gatherings, family gatherings, travel. The kids are out of school. Sometimes you're taking time off from work because you have to travel, or sometimes your companies force you to take time off from work. There are expectations about family traditions and gifts, and you've got blended families, some of you. There's just a lot to deal with. And if you are on the spectrum, or maybe you suspect you are, or maybe you don't know, maybe this is kind of a new thing to you, or maybe you've known for a while, but chances are you've got sensory things going on, like, you know, you may smells and sounds and crowds and food textures may just be so overwhelming to you. And it may be that you haven't really known this for a while, or maybe you have, But this may be things that you don't understand about each other in your relationship, or maybe it's kind of a new thing that you're understanding about each other in your relationship. But either way, it's going to put extra demands on your relationship. And chances are you're also bringing a lot of again, expectations, preferences, opinions, a lot of differences to your relationship. And so that's going to put extra stress on your relationship. So if you've been together a while, the holidays may have already been kind of stressful for you. If you're in a new relationship, you may have a lot of hopes for this great new, awesome holiday experience. And I want to set you up for success, because chances are there are going to be some challenges that maybe you haven't anticipated. So if you're kind of already feeling overwhelmed just by listening to me talk about all this, then this webinar is for you, because I'm going to go over 5 really concrete, specific strategies that you can use going through the holiday season that will help really reduce your stress levels, those moments when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, when you're starting to get into a disagreement. I'm going to give you tools that you can use on your own, just by yourself, but also with your partner when in the moment, to help you get through this holiday season and really enjoy it a lot more. And minimize the stress, minimize any conflict that comes up. So you've got some dates to choose from. I will be live there in the Q&A for the first 2 dates. The second 2 are the webinar only. I won't be there live in the Q&A, but you will still get all the information all the same. So let's do this, you guys. Let's get you through the holidays. And then we'll do some of the harder relationship work after the holidays. This is not the time to do the really tough relationship work, because the holidays are stressful enough. And I will be talking to you more about how to get to that really hard. All right, I'm going to just pause that and let's see. Here we go. All right, so real quick, this is on the website, you guys. And so if you just go to my website, spectrumrelationships.com. Here are the dates. Wendy, yes, it's going to be an awesome webinar. And let's see, Mikey Boy's saying, do people generally seem to gravitate towards loud and obnoxious, highly extroverted people? Gravitate toward them. I don't know if they gravitate toward them, but sometimes you're saying, I ask this because my qualities like integrity and honesty and genuine care seem to be ignored because I'm not extroverted. I don't think that individuals on the spectrum necessarily gravitate toward loud and obnoxious people, but it's true that those types of people tend to really are harder to be around for someone who has sensory. So those loud voices, the rambunctious behavior can be very sensory overloading to someone who's more introverted, or the brain has trouble processing all that loudness. So it's not necessarily that you gravitate toward it, but that you probably have a lower threshold. In other words, your brain is struggling to process all that as much as easily. Let me go back to this slide really quickly. So these are the dates for the webinar and the price. I priced it really low for you guys. So this is like your happy Merry Christmas to myself gift. So anyway, just go to the website, spectrumrelationships.com, get registered. So it's going to be an 1.5 hour webinar. The first 2, you will have live Q&A with me. I'll be right there. The second 2, it's the webinar only. I won't be there in the Q&A, but you'll get all that information. Anyway, all right, let me take enough of that. All right, here we go. I'm getting really good at the tech, you guys, at all of this. So let's do some Q&A. I've missed you guys. And Mikey Boy, did I answer your question there? Actually, let me go back to what you were saying. You said your qualities like integrity and honesty and genuine care seem to be ignored because you're not extroverted. So I just want to say extroversion and introversion, those 2 characteristics are really unrelated to caring. The qualities that you're describing, the integrity, the honesty, the care, those are unrelated. to introversion and extroversion. So when we're introverted, we get our battery recharge from being by ourselves. It's not just a preference for not being around other people. It's where we recharge our battery, just like we have to plug this thing in to recharge it. We have to plug in our social battery to recharge it. An extrovert plugs in by being with people. That's how we plug in our social battery. An introvert plugs in by being alone. So you can be an introvert and you can be an extrovert and still really care about people. You can still have integrity. You can be an honest person and be either one of those. You're saying that those qualities are being ignored and you're associating that with not being extroverted. So the people in your life have either communicated to you that you should be more extroverted, or at least that's the meaning that you're taking. That's what you are perceiving, that people believe that you should be more extroverted, and that's why you're being ignored. I would actually encourage you to investigate some more, to be curious. I emphasize curiosity with the people I work with and with all of you. Investigate what it is specifically that's happening in your world. You're using the word ignored, so I'm curious what that means. Those characteristics and traits being ignored? Are you not being included? Are the people in your world wanting you to be more involved, be more social? So are you perceiving yourself to be ignored as a human being because you aren't more social? Those are the questions that I would start asking, and then I encourage you to ask, because those are wonderful traits in a human being. Are you choosing people? Are you choosing people that are more extroverted, more social? Do you prefer do you prefer people like that to kind of draw you out? Or are you possibly more attracted or drawn to people who are more toxic? Are you drawn to people who are toxic and more likely to minimize you as a person? And that is unrelated to extroversion and introversion. So those are some questions I would encourage you to ask yourself or investigate. All right. Vegan Goddess liked my music on my video, she says. Okay. So I've got a few questions that have been submitted for today's Q&A in advance. And if you are here for the first time, or if you haven't heard me say this before, welcome, first of all. But you can submit questions to me in advance by just emailing us at support@spectrumrelationships.com. And I can answer your question if you don't want to be here live, or if you can't and you just want to watch the replay. And I won't ever identify you. So that can be an anonymous question. But you can also submit your question here. And I do have people tuning in from quite a few different platforms. So whichever one you're on, I'm glad you're here. So I have people here from LinkedIn and YouTube, and also my Facebook page, and then my private Facebook group, which, by the way, if you're not familiar with the group, we have almost a couple thousand people in there now. And the group is for both neurodiverse and neurotypical partners. So if you're new to the terminology, neurodiverse pretty much just refers to anyone with a different kind of brain. And I specifically work with people who we refer to as having traits that are more consistent with autism, or what we used to call Asperger's. But we're a very respectful group of people, and in that private group, and we talk about being in relationships and what that's like, and we my members interact with each other and ask questions, and And it's just a really great group of people. So I encourage you to join. And I hop in there when I can and give some feedback as well. Okay. Hi Braden, how are you? Welcome. Okay. Actually that's one of my questions that was pre-submitted. Maybe that was you. Um, so Braden says, how do you tell a partner you think they have Asperger's? Okay, this is a really relevant question and a question that comes up quite a bit. So, you know, how do we tell a partner anything really that we have perceived, that we believe about them that may not be received very well? So, the answer to that really starts with why. We need to first start with what is our motivation? What is our own personal motivation? Number one, what's the reason that we first started looking into this? What is our own um what motivated us to start looking into this? So Braden, I would ask you, what motivated you to start looking into this to start with? And also, what is the nature of this relationship? Is this a long-term relationship? Is this a marriage? Is this a short-term partnership or relationship? And what is your need for revealing this to your partner? Are you needing your partner to, some people want their partner to be more aware of this in order to, it, a lot of people believe that if their partner was aware of the fact of being on the spectrum, then their partner can start to learn about themselves. And if their partner can learn about themselves, then in the long run, it will make things easier on me, right? If I can let my partner know that they're on the spectrum. Sometimes we want our partner to we have very good intentions for our partner because we believe that being aware of being on the spectrum would be very useful information for them, particularly if we see them struggling, if we see them experiencing challenges and difficulties. So, but the first thing to do is to ask yourself, why do I want to? Why do I want to share with my partner that he or she is on the spectrum? What is my own personal motivation? Because that will determine how we approach our partner. So Sandy, you said that is my situation, just what you said. So I said a few different things. So I don't know which one of those you meant. How we approach our partner, if we're wanting our partner to be more aware so that our own lives would be better, we need to really stop and think about whether or not this is really going to benefit our partner. Because are we wanting them to change? Because that's really probably not possible. And we also need to think about whether or not this information is truly going to benefit them. Because honestly, telling our partner if that they may be on the spectrum, if our partner realizes and has shared with us that something is off, something doesn't seem right. I've always known something was different about me. I've known some people have when couples have come to me, one partner has said, I've always known something was different. I've sensed it, I've known it, and they've shared that with their spouse and said, I've always known something was different, and this information makes so much sense once we discovered it. And now I don't feel alone anymore, and I don't feel so. It's my answer. It's like the missing puzzle piece. And so if you're aware that your partner has this knowledge and this awareness that there's a difference, that there's something different about them, and that you may have figured that out and that you can help them with that, then this may truly be something that you can say, hey, you know what? I've been looking into this. And so in that case, your approach, you want to approach with not that I think I figured out what was wrong with you. Nobody wants to hear that. That doesn't feel good. But you know what? I think I may have learned some things about how we're all different human beings and we all have some kind of differences. But I think I may have learned some things about how brains are wired differently. And I think I may have learned some things about how my brain is wired differently than your brain. So you're approaching it not from, I think I figured out what's up with you, but more of, I think I may have learned some things about how my brain, because then you're kind of owning your own brain, is different than your brain. And so let's talk about it, because I think maybe your brain is wired this way and my brain is wired that way. And so that this may be one of the reasons why we misunderstand each other sometimes. And so I think I may be what's called neurotypical and you may be what's called neurodiverse, meaning your brain is goes you works a slightly different way than the typical brain, not a wrong way necessarily, but a different way. Let me see what you guys are saying in the comments. Casey says, I feel like that is so very important because, at least in my case, bringing it up and having him confirmed, it gave me a sense of false hope that a diagnosis was a solution, and it led to a disappointment on my end. The confirmation was more helpful to me than it was had he known about it or not, because of the things I myself learned. Okay, so yeah, so you're saying having it confirmed gave me a sense of false hope that a diagnosis was a solution, and it led to disappointment on my end. Right. So yeah, the diagnosis is not really any kind of solution. It's just a framework. I mean, it's just a label, really. Getting a diagnosis doesn't really do anything to help you understand each other. It's just a label. It's a framework, but it doesn't do anything to fix the disconnect, because really, when you're in when you are a neurodiverse couple, when one of you has a neurotypical brain and one of you has a neurodiverse brain, your brains really are wired differently. Now, you may be you may be both neurodiverse. Like, somebody may have ADHD, which is a form of neurodiversity, and my expertise is primarily in the autism side, on the autism side of neurodiversity. But when we have neurodiverse brains, our brains work differently in how it processes the information, whether it's sensory information, emotional information, even data, even information, even factual information. We process it and use it differently. Social information, relational information. I'm doing this because I'm trying to come up with the word for this. Facial expressions, body language, nonverbal cues. We process all that differently. And so, yes, having a diagnosis and having that label it might give you a label, but it doesn't do anything for understanding the differences between you, really, and then what to do about it then. So how to approach. Let's go back to Braden's question. How do I tell a partner I think they have Asperger's? Well, if you really, once you've asked yourself what's in it for me? Why am I doing this? And am I really doing this because I think this is going to help us, I'm in this for the I'm not about right or wrong, you guys, but I'm in this for reasons that are going to benefit both of us and not do any harm. I'm not just in it for myself. It's about differences. It's about, hey, I think our brains work differently. I think maybe if we look at how our brains work differently, we maybe can figure out this gap between us. And it's not about something being wrong with you. It's about how we're different. Sandy says, LOL. Number one, to have an answer so I can understand him better in an effort to be more patient with our communication issues and other behavioral issues. The disconnect can be confusing and frustrating. Yes. So you mentioned patience, and patience is a virtue, but um, patience can also be very disheartening. It can be very I don't know if disheartening is the right word, but patience is not necessarily something that I want you guys to work toward, because patience is like tolerance. And tolerance is not something we really want to strive toward. We want to work more toward um really just understanding each other and having a vehicle for understanding each other so that it works better. Your relationship just works better. And so you're not tolerating it, because patience means you're having to tolerate something. And tolerating, it doesn't, it's not about, um, it, we want you to actually have a vehicle for communicating and understanding so that you are also being understood. You are understanding him better and he's understanding you better, so that you don't even have to have the patience as much. Um, Yes, I mean, patience is something that is important too. Yes, not I mean, I don't wanna just say, "No, it's not a factor at all," but understanding, awareness, knowledge, being that educational piece, I think is probably what you mean too, and that's so helpful. It's really helpful. Sandy says he's very open to the idea. This is so good because um, the three pillars that I have identified are so just critical to a relationship's health and the ability for a couple to make this work are willingness, motivation, and ability. So, ability has to do with someone's actual capabilities, and some people are really not capable of the skills that it takes to connect in a relationship. Some people enter into relationships without those capabilities, and sometimes we don't know if someone's capable or not, but that's something we have to look at. So that ability, and then willingness and motivation. We can be willing to do something without being motivated to do it. One of my very best friends has a son who's in his early 20s, and he's willing. She's kind of stuck right now. He's has Asperger's actually, and he's hasn't moved out from home yet, and he's willing to go enlist in the military, but he's not real motivated to do it. And he needs to lose a little bit of weight, according to the recruiter, and he hasn't really gone about. He started working out at the Y, and so that's an example of him being willing to do it, but not being very motivated to do it. The same is true in relationships. We can be very willing to be in a relationship and willing to um, maybe even go to a therapist or a coach like me, but not that motivated to follow up with what we learn and the tools so the fact that he's interested and open, that tells me he's willing. So that's one of those pillars. So that's good. That's a start, because some people are not even willing. I had someone contact me this week. She emailed us and she said, my husband has pretty much said, no, actually, this was a woman in the Facebook group. She didn't email us. She said that she's pretty sad because she's about to have to end a relationship with someone she really loves, because he's pretty much said he's not willing to get external help. And it's very difficult in a neurodiverse relationship to make it's very difficult to do this without any external help. Now, you don't necessarily have to get paid help. It makes it a whole lot easier if you can afford to pay for either private help or courses like mine or the coaching groups like mine. But you don't necessarily have to do that if you I've got tons of free videos or there but that's all external. It's none of you guys, none of you, I didn't either know how to do this on your own. You just don't. I didn't. None of us do. And so if your partner is unwilling to look outside of the two of you, that's very problematic for the potential for your relationship. Rianne says, I'm self-diagnosed autistic, awaiting assessment. Gosh, girl, you've been waiting a long time. That the UK system takes forever, doesn't it? I feel like I have to do this as well. People just don't want to believe me, saying that it's all rubbish. Well, apart from my parents who knew anyway, but because I wasn't diagnosed as a child, I have loads of issues with things. And well, some being told as I'm fake and for attention seeking. I'm 37 and everyone believes I'm normal, but I know I'm not. Yeah, that's really a struggle for a lot of people who, you're waiting on that. That is where assessment can be helpful, is to at least have that documented diagnosis when people don't believe you and they feel like they're accusing you of attention seeking. And especially when you're high functioning, and I put that in air quotes because some people don't like that term, because being high functioning doesn't feel very high functioning to a lot of people. It pretty much means that you're still able to work and live alone independently and have a job, as opposed to people who are on the severe end of the spectrum. But there's still a lot of difficulties and challenges for folks who are high functioning, but you look normal on the outside, like Rianne's saying, to a lot of people who believe that she's faking for attention, and that's so frustrating. Ben said, as you said, it's a framework, but without a framework, you don't have anything to build on. It's a plan, but even the best plan is worthless if nothing is acted on. Yes, exactly. So it's like a scaffolding, like a framework. I prefer framework, the word framework, to diagnosis, because diagnosis carries with it such a pathological association. People hear diagnosis and they think, mental illness and pathology and it's just such a negative term, and it can feel very negative at times, but really it is a framework. It's a scaffolding. It's that foundational layer that you're talking about, that the framework, that you can then, the plan that you can use to then build out the life that you have and the relationships you have and the way you communicate and interact. It's what you can use to understand yourself and understand the relationship that you're in, or to understand your partner if your partner is the one who is neurodiverse. Hi, Francisco. I think you're a new name that I haven't seen here. You said, someone told me it's harder to have a good relationship when both partners are neurodiverse. Is it true? I wouldn't say harder necessarily, because it is entirely dependent on the individuals. I have seen two neurotypicals have devastatingly hard relationships. I have seen neurotypical have hard relationships, and I've seen neurodiverse. It truly depends on the individuals, because neurodiversity is only one part of what you're bringing to a relationship. And so two neurodiverse folks actually depends on, it depends on other factors. Like, are you same gender? Are you opposite gender? Are you, what personalities, personality traits? There's just so many layers of traits and characteristics that we bring to our relationships. What kind of history do we have? I'm getting into stage 1 in Crack the Communication Code, which is my signature communication course. If you don't know about it, you guys. And stage 1 is what we bring to our relationship into every interaction. And so the reason why I can't answer that question for you is because each one of us brings a whole list of stuff to every interaction and to our relationship, our values, our beliefs, our goals, our experiences, our history, our preferences, our wishes, our desires, our hopes, our culture, our families, all of that. And so all of that influences how we show up in a relationship and how we show up in each conversation. So it's really hard to say, whether or not, not even hard to say, I can't, I won't. So it depends on each person. Hi, Kevin. Good to see you. So Kevin says, hi, Jodi. Do partners who are both ND tend to have similar communications issues like an ND and NT couple have? Yes. Now that is true. And it's because actually all human beings have the same. So I could take this communication course that I'm talking about, the Crack the Communication Code, and take it and just apply it to every relationship. It could be used in neurotypical relationships for those couples. I happen to create it for couples who are neurodiverse, which means somebody is on the spectrum. It can be both of you, but somebody's on the spectrum. So, and the reason is I actually go into some of the aspects of your relationship that neurodiversity affects. So some of the sensory challenges, some of the executive functioning challenges, which is your organization and planning and processing, and the sensory being, overwhelmed from the sounds, smells, and all of that can influence just lots of different aspects of your life. And so these are some of the layers that influence your relationship in a way that doesn't affect neurotypical relationships. But yes, the communication breakdowns that happen for neurodiverse ND couples, yep, same stuff. Absolutely. Good question. Vegan Goddess says, I've learned the term masking and didn't realize I was doing it for so long. Yeah. So masking, you guys, is not a bad word. A lot of people associate it with this bad, horrible thing that autistic folks do. It's not. Masking is just basically learning the social scripts, learning the social scripting, learning the social appropriate thing to do and say in any given situation and doing it accordingly. It's putting on our social mask in any situation. And we all do it. We all do it. Every single one of us. And if we don't, that's problematic. I mean, I talk about this a lot. I mean, I have a professional mask, which is the one you're seeing right now. But I also have a mask that I wear when I'm being a mom. And it's different, let me tell you. My kids will tell you they see a different mask than what you guys see. I have a different mask when I'm hanging out with my girlfriend, when I go and cheer on the Georgia Bulldogs and they're playing a big game this weekend. And I'm going to have a very different mask on this weekend. That's what we do. And a lot of where my neurodiverse folks get into trouble with this is you guys struggle with what's socially appropriate. So you study people and you learn what masks to wear. You learn the scripts and you learn what's appropriate. And so you follow those scripts very carefully. And so when you're dating and you met your partner, you're following the dating script and you've got the dating mask on and you're courting and you're romancing and you're being the dating partner. And then you get married and you go, whoop, and you take off the dating mask and put it down. And then you get the married mask and put it on. Or maybe you're not married, maybe you're in the long-term relationship, and so you put the long-term relationship mask on. And it's different because you have a different script for what a long-term relationship is all about. The thing is, your partner sees this really dramatic change in the masks. They see the dating person become a totally different person when you put that different mask on, and they're like, "What? Hold up. Where'd my person go? What happened here?" And you don't realize how different you show up. You don't realize how different that, because with a neurotypical person, the shift is a lot more subtle, and the personality, there's a lot of overlap in the traits and characteristics, and there's not as sudden of a not as big of a shift. And so you don't realize, you're not meaning any harm by that. You think you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing as a partner that's going from dating to long-term relationship, or to married. But your neurotypical partner is taken aback and shocked and thinks they've been duped, and that they've, wait a minute, hold on, this is like bait and switch. I was baited, and now this is what I get. Lots of issues in relationships about this, and that's, it's just real confusion, and nobody's really doing anything intentionally harmful, but it's confusing. And so this is why learning how to communicate about this stuff is so important, so you guys can get on the same page and understand what's going on. And because the meaning that's taken away from all of this, your neurotypical partner starts going, "What's going on here?" And then you feel criticized. You feel criticized and rejected, and your neurotypical partner feels like you don't love her, that you're trying to get away with not taking care of the relationship. And then you both just totally misunderstand each other big time. And that can happen in neurodiverse relationships too, by the way. Those same types of masking misunderstandings. What are you guys talking about over here in the comments? I'm glad you brought that up, the masking thing. XT says, "My husband has so many characteristics of ADD. Why is he so rude and lacks patience, please? Thanks." Okay, so ADD is a form of neurodiversity, and it also overlaps into autism, Asperger's. I use these interchangeably, you guys, autism, Asperger's, because depending on how old you are, you may use the different term. It's all the same stuff. ADD is not autism and Asperger's, but pretty much ADD is a part of autism, Asperger's. But if you don't have to, you can be ADD without being autistic or having Asperger's. So, okay. Why is he rude and lacks patience? So the patience is that it's like our regulator. It's like our ability to remain calm even when there's a lot going on. And so with ADD, that attention deficit, that means the brain's just just constantly going and being distracted constantly. And so the inability to just regulate and stay focused is very impaired. And so it's, for someone who doesn't have ADD, one of maybe the best comparison is to imagine what it's like when you haven't slept for 3 days. Like, you've had very little sleep and you're easily distracted. Someone with ADD is not tired like that, although they can be. But that difficulty in concentrating and being difficulty in focusing, you're going to be very irritable and very grumpy when you're sleep deprived like that. It can be a similar type experience. So hope that can help you understand how his brain's working overtime with ADD. Same with folks on the spectrum, because you've got that ADD. That's an executive functioning task, by the way, that's a big word for how our brain executes tasks. So executive means execute. So in other words, how our brain goes about performing a task. So executive functioning, how it performs a task. So how we plan, how we organize, how we strategize, how we go about a task is first this, then this, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, how we go about. And then if we get distracted between step 1 and step 4, which is very likely with ADD, or if you're on the spectrum, it's also very likely that you may get distracted. And if you do, you're going to be very irritable because now, where was I? I got distracted. Now I've got to go back and figure out where I was in my planning and doing a task that for a neurotypical brain might seem very simple. This is not about intelligence at all. This is just about brain processing. All right. Wendy says, she's referring back to social scripting. She says, or the social script changes as a new generation emerges and the script that my partner has learned doesn't work. Yes. So that's true. Our generation after generation, the social scripts do change. Absolutely. Yeah, I have to get my teenagers, or my daughter's almost 19 now. She's growing up. I have to get them to translate for me sometimes. Not just what terminology means, but what certain behavior means, or I will suggest to them something, a way to approach a friend, and they're just like, Mom, no, oh gosh, nobody does that. I'm like, really? I would probably be considered socially odd to someone of their generation, but they don't think of me that way because I'm 49. So they just look at me and they're like, oh, she's a mom. So they don't think I'm socially awkward. But if I were to go about interacting socially with them and I were their age, they would think I was weird. Because you're right. It changes. And sometimes it's hard to keep up. Ben says, good point there, but masking can be incredibly taxing on the person. Suppressing certain stems creates stress that can lead to meltdowns and shutdowns. Yes. Oh, okay. I'm really glad you brought that up too, Ben, because the mask, this is why when you get home, this is why folks on the spectrum really have a lot more meltdowns at home, because the masking that is necessary. So I was just telling you that my professional mask is what you guys see. My office is in my home, so I don't have to go out in the world. I'm not on the spectrum. So if I did, and when I have, I used to have when I was working as a clinical therapist, sorry, I'm shaking my desk. When I was working as a clinical therapist, I had counseling practices out in the real world. And I was okay with that, but I don't have to do that now. But someone on the spectrum, has to, if a job is outside the home and they have to go out into the world and wear that professional mask, it can be very exhausting to mask and not, like you said, not be able to stem. And what he's talking about, you guys, the stems can be a range of behaviors, from fidgeting. My son he has sensory processing disorder. He's not actually autistic, but he does have the sensory processing disorder, and he constantly bounces his knee, boom, 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 boom. The whole floor shakes. That's not something he can do at school. And it's not something he's going to be able to do once he gets into a job. Stemming can be verbalizations. It can be vocalizations. It can be guttural noises. It can be the flapping of the hands is something that kids do, but I've seen adults do it too. Everybody has different kinds of stems. But sometimes you can't do them in public. And so it's exhausting and overwhelming because of the masking, like you said. the wearing that professional mask, not being able to stim. Stim is basically giving the body what it needs to regulate. So the body needs a certain type of stimulation. That's what the word means, stimulation. The body needs certain things. And by the way, the holiday webinar, that's one of the 5 tools. We're gonna talk about a sensory diet, which is not food, you guys. We're gonna talk about certain types of stimming that you can do anywhere to help regulate. It's food for your sensory system. The sensory cortex of your brain goes across the top of your brain. It's food for your brain to help it stay regulated. Um, so when you have to mask like that while you're out in public over the holidays, you're going to be around out and about, maybe more than usual. Then you come home, you are completely tapped out and overwhelmed and exhausted. And then maybe your partner comes at you with, the kids come at you, the dog, the cat, and you're just like, ah, and just can't handle it. And that comes out in the form of a meltdown. It can look like a tantrum. It can look like it can come out in the form of yelling at your partner, or at your kids. Just kind of it looks like it can look like a lot of different ways depending on whatever your meltdowns look like. Those of you who have kids on the spectrum, I'm sure you've seen this. I've seen this with my daughter, who's now a college freshman. She would hold it together at school all day and then come home and just fall apart and have big meltdowns. It's the same concept with adults on the spectrum. Francisco says, when starting to date someone, when's the proper time to talk about being neurodiverse? Francisco, I'm giving you lots of I don't know, or there's not a good time. It truly depends on how long, how okay. First date, probably not a good idea. I would say wait until it looks, wait until you have kind of vetted that person. You want to be doing the vetting, not hoping that they want you. You want to make sure that this is somebody you want for yourself, first of all. And so what I like to tell people is you want to share being neurodiverse with your inner circle. And you want to think about, who am I going to allow into my inner circle? And when you start dating somebody, you want to wait until you've decided that this person is worthy of being in your inner circle. And it's hard to say exactly how long that's going to take. But that person, you need to go out with them enough times to determine whether or not that person's worthy of being in your inner circle yet. And so, and you also want to give them time to get to know who you are before telling them that you're neurodiverse, because you want them to, you don't know what they know yet about neurodiversity. And so some people are going to form impressions based on the word, because they may not know what that means. Like, you don't want to tell them before they've met you. And you don't want to tell them on that first date, or maybe even the second date, before they've gotten a chance to know your personality. But wait until they get to know you first, and then wait until you've decided that they're worthy of being in your inner circle. And then you can let them know. Hopefully that helps. All right. Vegan Goddess says tiptoeing. Not sure what you mean by that. Oh, you said our almost 15 years old still walks in. Oh, tiptoeing. Yeah. Stimming. Yes. That is a form of stimming. Yes. Hi, Eileen. Good to see you. You said, not sure if you got the question I sent earlier. Here's the question. In the video featuring Matt and NT, who is Jen, really good. Thank you. Yeah, they're awesome. She talks about getting to a point where the things that Matt, who's neurodiverse, does or does not do simply don't bother her anymore. That would be my goal, and I would like to hear you talk more about getting to that point. Jen's journey, others you've seen, your pointers, etc. I would say that in my case, I've come a long way, but certainly I'm not bulletproof. Um, and then I think the rest of your question got cut off. Well, it's very good to hear from you, and good to hear that you've come a long way. And I think this kind of goes back to what we were discussing at the very beginning of the Q&A today, when I was talking about not being about patience and tolerance, but about getting the relationship to a point where you're truly connecting and understanding each other in a way that these issues are not really a thing anymore, because you are you're being heard, you're hearing, you're understanding what's going on now from such a different perspective. The meaning that you're taking from it is so different now that it doesn't bother you anymore. Because really, if you'll remember, Eileen, that stage 4, the stage 3 of communication is the meaning you take from it. So, guys, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the 4 stages of communication that I go into in my Crack the Communication Code. What we bring to it, I've already told you about tonight. Stage 2 is how we interact, it's what we actually say and how we do it. Stage 3 is the meaning that we assign to those interactions. And it's well, he or she did this, so that means I'm not loved. It means I'm being criticized. It means I'm being rejected. It means he doesn't care. It means she doesn't want me. It means he's treating me poorly. She's treating me poorly. She doesn't, it means all these things that we're assigning the wrong meaning to our partner's behaviors and actions because we're not understanding them properly, because we speak different languages. We are misinterpreting and misperceiving our partner's words and actions and behaviors. So, Eileen, what has happened with Jen is, now that she and Matt have gotten so much clarity on what is meant by the words and the behaviors that was misunderstood before. The meanings were misunderstood. And now there's a whole new meaning there, that those things don't bother her anymore because the meanings are different. And she's clear. She's clear on how much he loves her. Clear. There's no question in her mind how much he loves her. So those things don't bother her anymore. So it's not about having patience and tolerance and being able to just push through it. It's about knowing so much more about what's actually happening. I really hope to see you get there too, Eileen. I hope you'll hop back in. Enrollment's about to open up for another communication group in January. Step 3. I get myself confused. I'd love to see you there. Casey says, my husband is, and Eileen, I see you said makes very good sense. Thanks so much. You are welcome. Casey says, my husband is mostly a shutdowner. And I've realized after going through the courses that over the course of our marriage, I haven't created an environment to where he feels safe talking to me openly. I spent too much time in how in the world could you say, think, or do that, previous to knowing that we were in a neurodiverse relationship. So far, those who found out later in life, the shutdowns, meltdowns may be much fewer and severe once you are both educated. Thankful for you, Jodi. Well, thank you. And yes, that is the goal, because once you have the education, yes, the shutdowns and the meltdowns are minimized, are reduced a lot, because like I was just saying, the awareness now, the knowledge is there. And you said you spent so much time saying, how in the world could you say that, think that, do that? Because your meaning was you were misunderstanding the meaning. And he also was misunderstanding your meaning. And so the way he used language was in a way, or the way he did life was just different than the way you do it. And so now you guys are starting to have a shared meaning, and you have a way to communicate to get to that shared meaning. Um, that's no longer antagonistic, and that's no longer, what I call in the boxing ring, where you're fighting each other, where you can go into it with curiosity now and go, okay, hold on. What I take from that is, what did you mean by that? Let's figure this out, because that felt ugh to me, and I don't think you meant it like that. So let's figure it out together. It's such a different approach, and it takes time, but as you saw from Eileen was talking about Matt and Jen, it works. And Michelle, Michelle's talked about it. There's so many others that haven't done videos, that it's cool to be on my side of it, to see people really, really getting, their relationships just turning around and doing so much better. XT says, my relationship of 21 years is physically dead. I've shut down from him. I am neurotypical and he is not. Can this ever repair, please? Well, and that was actually a question. I'm going to combine these two, because someone else had submitted a question that said, and I don't know if this is actually your issue, but I'm going to combine these two questions, because my other question was, how does sex with someone with Asperger's feel like you're making love with a robot? There's no passion, and I'm wondering if this is normal. So to combine these two questions, and this is the last question I'm going to take, because you said that your relationship is physically dead, and you have shut down from him, and this other person is saying it feels robotic. So it's definitely, you're asking if this can be repaired. So these two questions are basically about a major difference in preferences, wishes, desires, and what is needed, what is hoped for in that sexual relationship. So what one person in one question is referring to as a robotic, mechanical type sexual relationship, it's not always that way in an Asperger's relationship. Some men on the spectrum are, and women too, are very thoughtful lovers, whereas others are not. It really depends on the individual. And the other person here asking is, can this be repaired? Well, it depends on why it's been shut down and what the reasons are for that. Is that shutdown related to, what is the reason for the shutdown? And so it's hard for me to answer that question without knowing what the reason is for the shutdown of the physical relationship. Is this related to an emotional disconnect, a communication disconnect? So yes, a sexual relationship that has been shut down can be turned around. It can be. I don't know about yours, because I don't know why specifically it's been shut down. And I don't know what that, those three pillars, the ability, the willingness, and the motivation, all three of those have to be present by both of you in order to repair it and to turn it around. You're saying he acts like a stranger in the morning. And so there's a lot of, so acting like a stranger. So my question there would be, what does that mean to you? Because there's so much in Crack the Communication Code. We talk about what we bring to our relationship. That's stage one of communication. So what I encourage everyone to do in when we go through the stage one module is ask themselves, what are we expecting? What are you expecting? What are your own expectations, your own preferences, your own beliefs, your own values? What are you looking for in a relationship, and what are you expecting of your partner? So you're saying, I think you're saying now in the comments that you are feeling used. So are you feeling used sexually? Is that what you're saying? When you have had a sex life, you said he acts like a stranger in the morning, and that's why you've shut down the relationship. Um, I have had, this is actually a pretty common problem across all relationships, whether it's neurodiverse, neurotypical. The relationship in the bedroom is one of the most complicated relationships. And when a couple feels disconnected, particularly women, men don't necessarily, as often anyway, men don't need that emotional connection, whereas women typically do. And so it's pretty common for women to feel disconnected, especially in neurodiverse relationships, if there is a disconnect in the emotional aspect of the relationship, the emotional communication. If there's a gap in the communication, women don't feel emotionally connected to their husbands. And if you're on the call and you're neurodiverse and your wife doesn't want to have sex with you, um, she's not alone, and that doesn't mean that you're not making an effort and that you're not trying, but it also doesn't mean that she's nuts. A lot of men who are neurodiverse are like, well, she's my wife. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? We're supposed to have sex. What's the problem? She's too emotional. She's bipolar. Nah, she's not. She's just got her brain's wired differently than yours. And she's not wrong about that. This is not about right or wrong. This woman here is describing that she's shut the relationship down physically because that emotional connection is not there. Now, if you are neurodiverse and you're going, well, I don't know what to do. I don't experience that. I don't know what she's talking about. Okay. I hear you. And I believe you. What we need to do is talk about what to do about that, because if you want to have a sex life with your wife, the worst thing you can do is tell her that she's the one with the problem and that she just needs to get past it, because she's not. She's not the one with the problem, and neither are you. This is a relationship problem. Neither one of you is wrong here. You just speak different languages, and we've got to bridge that gap here. Yeah, Braden's saying, I'm sorry, XT, you are not alone. You're not. You're definitely not. And so we've got to bridge that gap with communication. Communication is very, very important for our sex lives. So, XT, you're saying, can that be repaired? It can, but it has to start with talking about it. And so the question is, is your partner willing to talk about it? Is your partner willing to talk about it? Is your partner willing to work on your communication? Because we have to start there, because in order to repair and resurrect the sex life, we have to start with being able to hear each other, listen to hear, and to be heard. And so that's where it starts. Not sure he can. Well, unfortunately, not everybody can. And so that's that ability piece. And, I am a relationship coach. I prefer to save relationships, but I'm also a realist. I am divorced. And I recognized in my own relationship that I had to leave. And it was one of the most devastating decisions I ever made in my entire life. I left my marriage of 19 years to the father of my children. And it was horrible. But the ability wasn't there. And he's a good person. But it was very difficult. All right. Okay, we are out of time, you guys. That went by fast. It was good to see everybody, and I will be back here in a couple of weeks for Q&A. And next week we'll have another we're going to be live. We're going to be streaming something to you on the off weeks that I'm not here for Q&A. I'm not sure what it's going to be next week, but we'll have something for you. I'll be back for Q&A though, and be sure and hop over to the website. Amber, can you pop the web address into the comments? Amber's my assistant. And be sure and hop over and get enrolled for the webinar if you haven't already. And so we can get you through the holidays, you guys. And then enrollment is going to be opening up very soon for Crack the Communication Code for the next 6-week coaching group that starts in January. And if you haven't gotten started in Crack the Communication Code for the first 3 steps, you got time to do that. The first 2 steps are free. So anyway, it's all available. All the information is on the website. And I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Hey, Clara, good to see you. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Braden. I will see you guys soon. Have a good rest of your week. Bye, guys.